All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Psychonaut Sessions, but this is a conjoined Psychonaut session with drinks around the table. Aaron Conaway.
That's
Welcome.
us. Thanks.
So this is a new segment that we are doing called Mind to Five. What's Mind to Five, Aaron? I don't even know how to describe it. It's crazy idea.
Yeah, it's so deep. Basically, it's our top 5 on any given topic. It's going to vary. In our pilot episode here, we did want to do something that's near and dear to both of us, which is, would you care to break that down?
So this episode, we are going to talk through our top 5 writer/artist collaborations in a comic book series. So we have some ground rules to this. So it can't just be any kind of writer-artist collaboration. No single issues. No limited finite series. No
graphic novels.
No graphic novels. It had to be. Now I'm checking my stuff. It didn't do a graphic novel. It had to be within a comic book series and the collaboration had to be at least 6 issues long. And we're not talking like big major writer-artist collaborations. Like we're not talking like the Jack Kirby's and the Stan Lees or anything like that. We're talking about writer-artist collaborations that were really impactful to us in one way, shape, or form as fans, as readers.
Exactly.
So, and I think you might have gone, I'm really interested to see where we'll go with this because I think you might have gone a little bit more different than I did because you talked a lot about like childhood stuff and everything.
Yeah, a lot of my stuff is this is what got me in the game of comic collecting. My stuff, as we culled our list, I mean, it took us a long time to get down to 5, by the way.
Yeah,
and I mean,
this was
like,
hard.
Like we're saying, none of this isn't the Mount Rushmore of comic collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know who you've picked. Mine or not, like it's not like I'm pulling anything you haven't heard of, but these arcs are just, when I was a kid, this is where the love came from. And I mean, that's, everybody's got a different story for that. So, it's all subjective. But
see, I did writer-artist collaborations that were impactful to me, like overall.
Sure.
Throughout my life. Some of them are from when I was a kid, but I mean, they really, I kind of did all time with these.
Right. I guess I could have, but
it was hard. It was so hard. There's so many wonderful things.
Honorable mentions because of how hard it was. So.
Yeah, and even the honorable mentions, like you mentioned that you had like 6 or 7. I could have gone like 6 or 7 or 10 or 20 honorable mentions. Like there's just so many good comics out there.
But at that point, it's like, here's my top 20, but we're calling it Mind to 5.
Our Mind to 5. All right, Aaron, drinks around the table. Are you ready, sir?
All right, let's do this.
All right, go ahead with your honorable mentions, sir.
All right, so we have, for the honorable mentions, we limited it to 2. These are in no particular order. I have, first up, Jim Starlin and Ron Lim's Silver Surfer run 40 through 48. And I mean, we're not going to break the honorable mentions down as much, but particularly that issue 41's cover, I had just gotten into Heavy Metal, the magazine, at around the same time, and it had a very heavy metal-esque vibe that I loved. It just came off the Thanos return. Like, anyway, honorable mention doesn't get as much screen time. So my other honorable mention, though, is Peter David and Jeff Purves, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Incredible Hulk 347 through 359, the Mr. Fix-It Vegas run is also hugely
nice.
impactful to me. But oddly enough, the cover from that I think of most when I think of that run is not a Purves cover. It's issue 359 Burns cover of Hulk facing off multitude of characters, it seems, from the cover, but the story points out that that's not the case.
Love it. Yeah.
For yours.
Ron Lim and Jim Starlin almost got mine too. That Silver Surfer run. That got really close. So for me, first honorable mention, Preacher.
Nice.
Preacher. So the whole run. I mean, you got Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon. That almost made the list for me. It was very close, but still not quite the cigar. And then Planetary, Warren Ellis.
And
John Cassidy. Wow, I juggled between that and Transmetropolitan. But really, when I kind of thought about it, Transmetropolitan was just something I really enjoyed in one space and time of my life. But Planetary, I go back to. And that was kind of my criteria for me. What are the things that I keep going back to, that I keep enjoying? So nice. we'll have to weigh that difference with each other a little bit. Yours is more childhood impactful. Mine's more of like, what keeps me returning?
Okay.
So good honorable mentions. Not bad. Mr. Fix-It, sir.
Oh man.
Excellent run.
Loved that Vegas run.
Oh my God. All right. So let's get to the real meat.
All right.
Of this. Let's start with the countdown. Number 5, Aaron. You go.
Number 5, through a very difficult process of elimination, is Chris Claremont and Mark Silvestri's Uncanny X-Men 238 through 244 run. Particularly issue 239's cover is actually the very first X-Men I bought ever. And it was, I mean, it had demons like turning into or like contorting with elevators and phones in this building, and nobody was like paying attention. And it was the first time in a comic that the story was something I was paying more attention to. Usually it was just like the action and the art, and like, but it had all this like soap opera elements that I was like, okay, there's plot here. This is interesting. Okay. Towards the end of it, Jubilee got introduced, and I mean, I was at an age where I was like, that's how old I am. Like, very cool. Like, all right. And like, that was my eyes, which presumably was the point, into this world of mutants. And, you know, I had an inkling. I mean, as will come up later, like, this isn't my discovery of X-Men. This is just when I started, you know, collecting it.
Right. Yeah, that's Inferno storyline, right?
Yep.
So there is a carryover of that, a crossover of that into New Mutants, and that was one of the first X books that I ever picked up. And like that same imagery and everything, man, it just like that grabbed me. That was just like, I need to know what the hell is going on. This is some cool shit. And Silvestri's work on Uncanny X-Men cannot be understated. It's some of the best work in comics ever. It's incredible.
Certainly the iconic images that come up, a lot of it is Silvestri. Jim Lee obviously is in there too, but yeah.
My goal someday is to pick up some of the Essential X-Men where you can just get it all in black and white and get all his inks in black and white. That just
nice. That would be
good.
Sweet.
So good. Nice pick, sir.
All right, what's your number 5?
My number 5. I'm going with Incal by Alejandro Jodorowski and Jean Girard, otherwise known as Moebius. I've heard some people say Mobius. I've heard other people say Moebius. So I actually encountered Incal long time ago, probably around my college days. It was like in an art mag, and there were snippets of it, and it was one of the first times I really saw Moebius's work, and it just pulled me hardcore. And so really, and this counts, I think, as a full series, because it is, this initial story they did is in 6 installments, but it's longer than regular issues. But there is a full series of Incal, because there's what happens before Incal and happens after. Okay. And it came out in like 6 different installments in Meadow Hurlant, the magazine. So I'm hoping that counts as our criteria. I mean, you can push the buzzer if you want.
No. You're good. You're good.
And nix it, but Alejandro Jodorowski is like really influential to me because he kind of takes like Jim Starlin's cosmic sort of stuff that I know we both like and kind of amps it up to 11. Like it's like Jim Starlin on acid, and he just goes so far out there with like weird occult stuff and everything, and it's an incredible cosmic adventure, and it's actually going to be adapted now by Taika Waititi. Who better to adapt this particular epic than Taika Waititi? And Alejandro Jodorowsky even kind of gave his thumbs up to Taika Waititi about it. So it's an influential book in the sense that it was based upon the concepts of the Dune movie that they were going to make, which ended up highly influencing other Hollywood imagery, like The Fifth Element. A lot of stuff in Fifth Element you find in this book, in this comic. So really cool stuff.
Nice. I mean, it's Mobius. Who in their right mind is going to nix Mobius on any list?
Not on this channel, sir. Not on this channel. All right. Number 4.
Number 4 is my curveball, but it was definitely going to make my list, so we'll see what you think. But number 4 is from my previous one. I broke mine down to dates too, so November 88 to May 89 was my X-Men run.
Okay. Incal was 80 to 88.
Nice. So number 4 ran from March 86 to August 86. And it is Larry Hama and Rod Wingham's G.I. Joe number 45 through 50. Particularly issue 46 cover with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, who obviously I'd already known from the cartoon, but seeing them in this context blew my little mind.
Yeah.
Like watching them storm Cobra Island to try to kill Zartan and just cutting through. I mean, for the first appearance of the God, I'm blanking, the Terradrome. Like, like the two-parter. But I mean, that cover is what sticks out. But the two-parter of like them getting all the way through, and Zartan, though it's not Zartan, like it's Ripcord, but gets away. Then they're stuck and they're having to get back out. Baroness blows Storm Shadow away. Like, the drama was fantastic. Snake Eyes rode a great white in issue 47 and then stabbed it in the head. Like, it was everything 10-year-old me could
yes,
in a comic book. Like, I geeked out so very hard.
Such an incredible cover.
Oh,
love it.
That whole run was amazing. It got to where collecting G.I. Joe at that point, the cartoon didn't do it for me as much anymore because it was silly compared to like they just eviscerated people.
It was everything. Yeah, one of the first issues when I really started collecting G.I. Joe the comic was quite a bit after this. You were ahead of me. So it was issue 60, 61, 62, when Cobra Commander gets killed by the clone dude. What's his name? I can't remember, but he takes over.
Oh, Serpentor.
No.
Oh,
the guy that takes over for Cobra Commander.
Yeah. The guy that ends up in the armor. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Because Serpentor showed up at the end of this run that I'm talking about.
Yeah, that blew my mind. In the cover of 61, it's got Quick Kick and
yes.
God, they're all like shooting. Oh my God, I'm killing this, but
you'll put the cover up later. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll put the cover up while we're talking. But totally, that was my influential point. And so I was like looking at this run, and I was like, yes, because I've read the whole run, and it's like the G.I. Joe comics are goddamn amazing. Larry Hama, like if we just did writers in series.
Oh, and if we do,
this
will be on there.
Yeah, this will be like number 2, number 3. This will be huge. But those particular issues that were impactful to me were a little bit later. And they had intermittent artists from issue to issue at that time. So
right, which is I mean, it like Wiggum just happens to, because I was worried. I was like, oh man, I don't know that because G.I. Joe did that, where it was like you would have these intermittent artists. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to use this run. And then I just lucked out that he did 6 issues, so it made our criteria. Mike Zeck cover, by the way, though. He didn't do the cover. Wiggum didn't do the cover, but he did the interiors on that whole run.
But
that issue 46 Mike Zeck cover, if I would have a poster of that hanging on my wall now if I could.
Yep. Tattoo it on my body.
All right, what's your number 4?
Okay. My number 4, and this is, I didn't get the dates for this one, but we'll be able to kind of gauge it. Uncanny X-Men 267 through 277. So I went after that initial Silvestri run because it was this particular issue, X-Men 275. Man, you took me to Food Fair and I picked this up. And that was that we went to your back porch and you laid out the whole freaking mythology of the X-Men to me with this particular issue. And I was like hooked for life. It was like a drug I couldn't let go of until the comics started sucking in the 2000s. But still, I knew
that run was going to be on here somewhere.
This run just does it 100% for me. It's like, even like the X-Men #1 stuff is like, it's okay. It's really all this stuff. And like, you know, what you were talking about, all of Silvestri stuff, like that whole era of X-Men when they're all broken apart, Professor X is gone, right. And they're more wandering and in the outback. Like, this is the era of X-Men that I love. And in this particular one, it's Cosmic X-Men too, which is just so freaking good. Love it. And like my little brain at this time like didn't really, I mean, this is still in the era when X-Men wasn't hitting mainstream yet. It wasn't, you know, the cartoon wasn't even out yet. But most of these characters, most people didn't even know. I mean, I remember going to school and telling people about Wolverine, and they're like, "What? The dude's got claws! Oh my god!" Yeah, excellent stuff. You can't get better than that. Thank you, Jim Lee. Thank you, Chris Claremont. I mean, Chris Claremont's made this list twice. We have to give this man credit for being some kind of god manifest on Earth.
Certainly to us at certain points in our lives.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning literally. No offense. You kind of got quiet there for a second. It's like, I didn't know how religious you were. All right, you ready? Number 3.
You're saying he's a deity? Wait a minute. All right, so as evident by my third choice here, I'm not wearing this shirt ironically, but I was a Marvel brat. Like, there's a lot of Marvel that came on all of, like, as I culled my list, it was mostly Marvel. So I love DC. I loved DC collecting as a kid, but like the impactful stuff that really hit me, Marvel just got there first. So my number 3 is David Michelinie and Todd McFarlane's Amazing Spider-Man 298 through 323 from March 88 to November 89. But particularly the first of this run that I bought was issue 305 with the Prowler, and I didn't know who the Prowler was. I had read something with Cloak from Cloak and Dagger in it, and in my little kid brain I remember thinking, like, is it Cloak? Like, Spidey's in his cloak. Is it Cloak? He's got a mask now. I didn't understand, and like I was just completely enamored with the cover though, so I bought it. And then I went and got everything. And this is the run that gave us Venom. This is the run that, like, there's tons of more famous shit that came out of this run. Mm-hmm. But that cover and incidentally, the Mysterio that they did, and I think it might be 314. I don't remember. Anyway, there's a Mysterio cover that deeply influenced me because Phantom Stalker ended up with a helmet like Mysterio's, right, because of this cover. But Spidey was already a favorite, and McFarlane's Spidey, like, those webs just I couldn't get enough of, and I mean, clearly I wasn't alone in the world.
Yeah. If
like,
you were 13 and you liked to draw, those webs were everything.
Yeah. So it's that run, like so many fun things in that run. Like I read that run a lot.
It really created the career of like one of like the premier like comic moguls. I mean, the guy is a millionaire with like a whole enterprise under his belt. So
yep.
Oh, Todd.
That's
who is the writer on that one?
David Michelini.
David Michelini, that's right. Okay.
It was a kid, I always pronounced it Michelin, which doesn't make sense even a little bit when you look at how it's spelled. But
hey, we were from a small town. We didn't know better.
Be that as it may, I don't know how you get there. Anyhow. What's your number 3?
My number 3, I'm going, and this does harken back to childhood, because I was aware of ElfQuest from back then. I had like an ElfQuest magazine or two, but yeah, Wendy Penny and Richard Penny. Nice. ElfQuest, you cannot underestimate the influence that these people have had, not just like on the comic industry, but the underground industry. This started in 1978. So they were like with all the like Dave Sims and everyone else, like really trying to get that underground scene going and people making their own thing. So they were really influential for that. So their original story was like 20 issues long, but they just kept going and going and going. I mean, they're still making comics, man. They're still
ElfQuest. Okay.
2019 they were putting out Stargazer's Hunt.
Wow.
And so still one of the characters, like they've kept this universe going consistently. And like in terms of a writer artist pairing, I mean, they're married, they like work seamlessly together, they've like been together their whole career. They've never, floundered and did anything else. It's just like their whole lives have been a career together, and they just keep producing amazing works. And it's like high quality from the very first pages of ElfQuest onward. Like every page is just some of the best artwork and storytelling that I've ever seen.
Nice.
Another thing I want to say about ElfQuest that's awesome is just it's so cool to get like fantasy elements in comics, which was fairly new at that time. But also this is like one of the first comics apparently that ever had a preconceived conclusion, because most comics were just series at that time.
Ongoing,
yeah. But they definitely had like a storyline in place with an end. So that initial run was originally only 20 issues, and they were, anyway.
That's cool.
Love ElfQuest. It's always been very magical to me.
I didn't come to it and I haven't read but a handful of issues, but I had a book. I had some short stories that were of the world that I did too. I did too. I thought they were amazing.
That's how I first found it. I picked it up at like Food Fair or something, one of the local grocery stores, and it blew my mind. And then my uncle ended up having like a couple ElfQuest magazines, and lent them to me, and it just elves can be like this. They can be wild, awesome savages riding on wolves and shit. Whoa. So it was cool. Love it.
Awesome. Sweet. All right. So.
Oh, yeah. Number 2.
Number 2 is from October 87 to July 88. Peter David and Todd McFarlane's Incredible Hulk 336 through 345.
Figured.
Yeah, that one. I mean, Hulk was my guy, my first love in comics. So,
what issue's your heavy hitter?
340. Like that's not gonna shock anybody, but there were some fun covers throughout the run. But I mean, that was my first. I learned who Wolverine was with that issue. Like I'd seen him. I think the first time I'd ever seen Wolverine was I think it was maybe a X-Men versus Avengers, and I only had like issue 2. Like I had no idea what the story was. The action was fun. There was a guy with claws, like you were saying, like, but I didn't know what any of it was about. But I got like my first, the kickoff of that run, X Factor was the Exterminators. Like, they were undercover, appearing to hunt mutants so they could save. Like, I didn't know who the X-Men were. I didn't know anything about anything, and their little 2-issue guest appearance was enough to make me eventually pick up Uncanny 239. And then having Wolverine and the X-Men show up later, mostly Wolverine for that one climatic battle, like, yeah, I was sold on X-Men. But I mean, just that run of Hulk with McFarlane's art was, it wasn't quite to the level of Spidey's webs, but he had some Shield machinery and like giant robot stuff that I was just completely in love with, particularly at that age. But the whole the issue with Manbull, who I didn't even know was, like, all I knew at the point that when he's in the issue is he's like a monster like Hulk, but he's shaped like a bull. And they fought, and that was awesome. But then I ended sad because it was like, oh, no, I don't want Manbull to get hurt. The whole thing culminated in Middletown, like the leader's plan to, like, with Gamma. But it was just so amazing. Like the following this thread that I didn't realize I was getting parts of throughout their little stint leading up to Middletown, and then it turns out that, like, they don't save the day. Like, blew my mind. Like, art and story, just
that issue,
bravo.
Like that run, really, but that issue especially is like one of the most riffed comic covers ever.
Yeah,
one of the most. I mean, so many homages to it, and rightfully so. It's so good.
It is
so good.
Like, so bravo, McFarlane. You made my list twice. So
wow,
far.
Todd the Allfather is going to be really happy with you, sir.
I know.
All right.
What's your number 2?
Number 2 for me. Now, this is not a non-childhood. This is a non-child book completely. Yeah. All right.
Gotcha.
But I keep going back to it. The Outlaw Nation. Jamie Delano. And so I'm kind of weird on this. There were 2 artists in this series. Goran Sadzuka and Goran Parlov, both named Goran, both Croatian, both when you look them up. Now, they both had at least 6 issues. Okay, so I think I'm covered within the ground rules. One of them worked on Why the Last Man, one of them worked on Punisher Max, but also Why the Last Man. And I can't really find anything else that they worked on together. I'm almost wondering if they're the same person, but their last name changed or something. I don't know, because their art is so similar as well. Outlaw Nation. So Jamie Delano, who was like one of the main like Vertigo artists, he did Hellblazer. What else did he do? Animal Man, Captain Britain. To me, this is like his seminal work. This is one of my most favorite series of all time. And the issue with this is that Vertigo decided to cancel it before he was done. And so the last issue or 2 are kind of just like the whole storyline ends up just kind of crapping up, and he has to like cramp it all together. It's still good. It's still a great story. I could have been collecting this story to this day if it would have stayed to the caliber of that. Like, this is how I want to make comics, is Jamie Delano and one or 2 of the Gorons, however you pronounce their last name. But excellent series, 2000 to 2002. Fairly recent, but Vertigo. But now, like, Vertigo doesn't carry the imprint. You can only get this black and white collection from Image.
Really?
Interestingly enough.
So
I only have the black and white collection, which is really cool because I like studying the ink work. I mean, I study this book all the time. It is like really used. I need to get the single issues again because I do want to kind of see it in color again as well. But I love it. I love that story so much.
It's amazing. It is very, very good.
Number 1.
Numero uno. Peter David makes the list again.
Jeez.
This
Peter
time
David.
with Dale Keown.
I knew it was going to be
August
Dale Keown.
90 to January 91.
I
Incredible
knew.
Hulk 372.
I knew that run had to be
377. Yep. And 377 is the cover that like blew me away. But I mean, you have like the whole, I keep saying culmination, but Peter David did that a lot, where he would lay all of this groundwork and then it would come to a head. And I mean, in this case, it had been years and years and years of clues and like character arcs showcasing just how fractured Banner's brain was. And then we got to Professor Hulk, and it was the most, I don't know that I think it stands the test of time as far as my interest now. Like, I definitely prefer my Hulk smash, my, you know, more visceral raw Hulk. But at the time, I was intrigued as hell at this, you know, massive brute that had Banner's genius. And I mean, it led into, you know, from here we get into, you know, Agamemnon and like all of that whole era. And I mean, just so good. And Keown, I mean, when Image kicked off, Pitt was one of the things I was most excited about. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously I was a McFarlane fan, so Spawn was up there, but I mean, as it turns out, I preferred Savage Dragon, but Pitt was the one that I was like, yeah, no, Keown, I'm in. Like, let's go. Because this run was amazing to me.
It's like the things that David established with Hulk, like other writers have tried to kind of take that fractured psyche angle and do other things with it, and it just doesn't like carry the weight that
I mean, it just feels like it feels like a retread at this point too. Like, we've done this. Like, we get
this is like very important. The best comics that have ever been produced is when someone has been on it longer than just a year or whatever,
right?
And they have time to establish their world with that character and build up the side characters and the subcast through it, and just these amazing arcs. Chris Claremont and Peter David are like two of those like epic titans.
Yeah, I mean, and what's weird is in both cases, and I mean, this may get me struck down, but the rereads aren't with Claremont and David. I went from a place where, as when I first read them, I came at it from a writer's perspective and was completely enamored with that. The art was secondary. In a reread, not only is it a little verbose, but Peter David in particular loved pop culture references and puns of the era.
Right.
So it dates itself severely.
Right.
So I focus more on the art during rereads now. And plus, like, Peter David, it wasn't in any of this run, so this is a great example of what I'm talking about. But there was a moment, I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan, and there was a moment in his X Factor run where he borrowed a line of dialogue, like not just a line of dialogue, but like a scene from The West Wing. It's in there. And I mean, I'm not saying like he lifted it, but I mean, it's definitely, if you knew both, it's like, I know what you're referencing here. It was more just like a reference, but it was the first time I'd ever seen material reused in such a manner. And so outside of stuff like that, David's a little tough for me to read past a certain point. And it gets a little better as it moves forward.
Right.
As he moves forward. But like the early stuff that I loved as a kid, now I kind of skim a lot of it and just focus more on the art and like focusing on key moments. And I did the same with Claremont.
I think it comes with a difference of a comic written in an era that was purely a monthly newsstand, that, you know, there wasn't like getting collected trade editions. That wasn't even in the mind of writers, and so I can't imagine most writers pre 1996 or whatever. I just picked that because that was the year I graduated high school. But I can imagine most comic writers had in mind that this stuff is going to be collected and contained and in trade, and
right.
They're getting a paycheck and they're pushing out a magazine once a month, right?
Right.
So massive difference.
Sure.
I would think.
Sure.
Still, you can't, again, like, call out to the influence. Peter David is amazing.
Yep. All right, drum roll.
All right.
What's your number one?
I'm pulling Alan Moore in for my number one.
Surprised it took this long, actually.
There was a lot. There was a lot of Alan Moores that had to juggle along with everyone else. But Alan Moore and J.H. Williams III, Promethea, is my number one. It is a full series. I can't remember the exact issue count, but from 1995, 32 issues.
Oh wow, I thought it was more than that, actually.
Yeah, 1999 to 2005. So started out as America's Best Comics. Unfortunately, it got bought over by DC because it was part of Wildstorm, and Jim Lee sold all the properties to DC. So now you can see Promethea, like, along with other characters and Tom Strong and all of them. It just, which sucks because Promethea is really kind of, even though it was in this Alan Moore's America's Best Comics universe, it was really its own story, which, the character is just, it's all about like imagination and magic and amazing in that regard. The art is gorgeous. There's a lot of interviews with J.H. Williams III you can find out on YouTube, and the way he just talked about working with Alan Moore just sounds like it was a seamless relationship, and Alan Moore trusted him completely, and just Alan Moore is really famous for working with artists in such a way that he totally tries to bring out the best of their qualities. So, which his scripts are hella fun and amazing to read if you can ever get a hold of them or look those up on the internet. But that probably of all of his works, which he's obviously one of my favorite writers, this is the top-notch work in terms of a writer-artist pairing. Just incredible, because Alan Moore is all about detail, right? Even more so than with like Dave Gibbons, I think. Alan Moore is all about detail, and like J.H. Williams III just has so much stuff to look at and view. The rereads of Promethea just never get old, over and over and over again. So that is our top 5 writer-artist collaborations. You went at it as a more of a, these are my childhood influences angle, and I went at it from a more holistic throughout all time angle.
They were, it's more of a, for me, more impactful on as a comic collector. Like, this is what these runs are what sealed the deal that I was going to have a lifelong love for comic, even though I don't collect new stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. Like there was a finite time where I loved nearly everything that was coming out. Like DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, Image. I was just flooded with things that on a weekly Wednesday shop made me happy.
I'm really surprised you weren't going to have a Superman run in there. I
couldn't find one where there were 6 issues that meant something to me that were the same writer and artist.
Right. I almost did All-Star Superman. That was one of the honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I love All-Star Superman.
And it's good, but I didn't come at it from a finite series as much as you did. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of finite series. There aren't minis, but they weren't ongoing either. And so I didn't even factor any of that stuff in, thankfully, or we'd still be waiting for me to comprise my list.
This was really hard for me. Now, this was a hard list. This was
we started with a heavy swing out the gate.
Yeah.
I do want to, I want to do our, solo creator, artist, writer, same. That top 5. I want to do yeah, I mean, there's tons. We're gonna make a list. There's gonna be a lot more of these back and forths. There are gonna be some where it's just one of us. There's gonna be some where it's gonna be on my channel. It's gonna be on this channel. We invite you to like give us your take. Either tell us down below, or if you've got a show or a setup, then record it and just hashtag #5. Like, tell us if we're wrong down below, but again, this is subjective, so I don't know how you can tell us we're wrong, but
I love lists. They're very important for Christmas shopping, man. I love people's top 5, top 10 lists. It makes me happy.
tell us how long it took you to come up with the list too, because we were a solid
almost a month.
At least.
Yeah.
Right at a month.
Yeah.
From concept to.
Granted, we had things going on too, but
sure, but it was not easy. It was a long haul, but
I kind of like the fact though that we're kind of gave each other loose guidelines, and then we came at it at completely different angles, and I'm really interested to see in the next one how we do with that as well. That's gonna be really interesting to see. I love it. No,
it was cool, and I liked. We did this blind. Neither of us knew what the other chose until we aired it. And yeah, no, that was really interesting. Except, yeah, the eclecticness. I am jealous. You covered some cooler ground than I did, but
I'm actually jealous of yours because you're like, man, you hit all the right ones. You got the G.I. Joe, you got the Chris Claremont, Mark Silvestri, and that feels more prestigious to me. It's like I just went with the Jim Lee. You went straight to the Silvestri.
Well, and like the one cover when I think Silvestri's X-Men is the Crucified cover, but it wasn't in a run that they did 6 issues together of. And I was like, well, I can't include that.
And what about their work on Wolverine? My God.
Oh man, like that.
My God,
that had so much. I mean, there's so much fun stuff. Anyway, we could sit here for hours and talk about all the amazing work that meant something to us. We'll announce a little heads up of what the next one will be, but I don't know what that is yet. We gotta discuss.
And if you have a suggestion, write us a letter.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just you can just comment too, like right down below. You don't have to.
We need a post office box for our fan mail.
Just like, yeah, here you go, Grandpa.
Remember those days?
Had to buy a stamp. I had to figure out where to buy a stamp, and then I mailed this. But no, yeah.
I bet there's kids right now watching this going, "What's a stamp? What do they mean?"
Well, and they're probably like, "Why are these 2 old men still talking about comic books?" Anyway,
that's sad that kids don't know what comic books are.
Well, they know what comic books are. It's us weighing in on them that probably has them thrown.
All right. Sir, thank you so much for joining me on the
Indeed. Show. Thank you for having me. And,
please have me on your show, and let's do this again.
We'll return the favor. Yeah, you'll see a lot more of Mind to 5. Just keep a lookout and stay tuned.
Hey, do you have anything you want to plug at the last minute? Any works of yours? It is Christmas after all.
I mean, sure, that's true. Just go to aaronconaway.com or look me up on Amazon and spend wisely.
Buy his books, good books. And you can find mine in my shop at danielmullerweb.com. I've got comics, I got books as well, and we both have merch. So go crazy. It's cold out there. Get some clothes on. All right, cool.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Keep it psycho. The single issues again, because I do want to kind of see it in color again as well. But I love it. I love that story so much.
It's amazing. It is very, very good.
All right.
I'm feeling like, yours is a much more eclectic list. Mine is very base. Like, I stand by it, but you're in more interesting spaces than I I should have done what you did and stuck to that whole list of 20 some books and pared it down to influential, impactful. But anyway.
Now, well, I don't want to, I mean, I'll cut all this out. But do we want to go back and get a new list and re-record?
No.
I don't want to jinx this at all. Who knows what kind of emergencies will show up, but is that what? Are you good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking. I was like, we could do that. I don't want to, but we could do that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Whew. All right. Now, your list is fine. Don't cut your don't.
No. I'm standing by it. It's fine.
Your list is great.
We came at this from different angles, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And so we're just covering lots of ground here. All right. So my number